Hi everyone, and welcome to the ICRS Exchange. It's brilliant to see so many people here today, and I'm really looking forward to a stimulating and I hope illuminating afternoon. So what I really thought I'd start with is thinking a little bit of what's happened this year and do a very quick run round review of the year. I think it's really fair to say that it's been an incredibly challenging year for everyone. I know that many of us have had some very challenging times, and undoubtedly there'll be more to come. But it's also been a challenging year for the ICRS too. And I thought it was worth reflecting perhaps on some of the milestones that we've achieved since we last met last year. So the first thing I'm really pleased to report is that we've seen incredibly large growth in our membership. We're now at 60 organisational members, and we have over 1,200 individual members. And I think this bodes really, really well for the future of the Institute, and indeed is a really strong reflection of the importance of this whole profession. You may have noticed that we have a new website and a new rebrand. The aim really here was to provide more effective and efficient support for you, our members. And I have to make a big shout out and thank you to Vic Taylor and the team at Flag for all the work they've provided in getting that together, pro bono work that they've done for us. We couldn't have done it without you, so many thanks for that. The other thing we did more recently was set up our COP26 Learning Zone. And again, I need to thank Emma Rhymes, Stephanie Taverner and Gemma Branney for all the work they've done. They came up with the idea of having this COP Learning Zone, and they delivered the whole project for us. So thank you for that. We've delivered 30 events this year through our regional hubs, and we've also set up our Fellows Hub as well, which is really starting to bear fruit in terms of helping us to think about future strategy for the Institute. We've also welcomed 3 new board members who are here today. I wanted to introduce to you Nadia Yafai, Dorothy Maxwell and Jatin Patel, who joined the board this year. The other aspect of the Institute that I'm particularly proud of is how we're supporting young members of the profession, or indeed those who aspire to join the profession. Our mentoring programme goes from strength to strength, and we've seen a real growth in our Aspire Hub this year. We also worked to help launch the UK's first CRS apprenticeship, and for me this is a really critical part of the work we do, is supporting young people as we go forward. I also wanted to mention Reagan and the team at Carnstone, who do a really brilliant job in helping to deliver the work programme for the Institute. It's been amazing working with them. They've been incredibly flexible this year in terms of delivery, and I really commend their commitment to the Institute. It really feels like a partnership approach to delivering the work programme. But more than that, we have an amazing group of people who have supported and delivered many of these milestones on a voluntary basis. I personally would like to thank my fellow board members for all their generosity and support throughout the year. And during my tenure as chair of the Institute, I really couldn't have done it without you, so thank you for that. But I'd also like to give special thanks to some people who have stood down this year and who have contributed so much to our success. In particular, I'd like to thank David Logan and Malcolm Paul, who stand down as board members this year. I'd also like to thank Luke Wellock, who in fact set up and ran the Leeds Hub for so many years. What a successful hub that's been. Thank you, Luke. I also need to thank our Aspire co-funders, Francesca Greaves and Maddie Hux, who are standing down this year. Again, they came up with the inspirational idea of setting up this hub and have worked tirelessly to deliver throughout the last 2 or 3 years. We always say that the ICRS is run by professionals for professionals. And from my perspective, these people absolutely epitomise that mantra. So heartfelt thanks to all of you. So I'd like to turn now to why are we here today. not only has it been a challenging year, it's been an extraordinary year for our profession. I thought I'd start with COP26. I know lots been said already. I just thought I'd leave a few bullet points, I guess, on my take. So in summary, as a result of COP26, as you'll all know, we now have the Glasgow Climate Pact, the agreement to raise our climate ambitions and requiring all nations to formulate and publish updated nationally determined contributions to the Paris Agreement. We've got probably for the first time a commitment to phase out unabated coal and to remove inefficient subsidies. And we've seen a real vamping up of climate finance. I think the commitment to transition to clean energy systems is to be welcomed, and an agreed goal for adaptation finance, though this is probably a lot less, or is in fact a lot less than that was requested by the developing countries. And one for me that I feel particularly strongly about is the commitment by 137 countries who represent about 90% of global forest to halt and reverse forest loss. But I think it's fair to say that political interests have made this an incredibly challenging event. And I guess I'm flagging a few concerns here. I mean, my first concern is that there's not really a clear pathway to limited 1.5 degrees temperature rise. And there clearly is still a very long way to go. To me, it feels a little bit like we're postponing action. And I'd really like to start seeing some more short-term targets and some kind of more signs of an immediate implementation of some of the things that need to do. I was particularly taken by David Attenborough's speech at the beginning of the conference when he asked us to draw on our ability to innovate and solve problems. He encouraged us all to think about how we form an alliance with nature, and importantly too, how we address equality in the actions that we take. He said, and I think this resonates with many of us, that we need to be motivated by hope, not fear. And we need to reflect very carefully on what future generations might say about how we took this once in a lifetime opportunity to limit carbon. And I think they're all really good pointers for our thinking today when we start talking about what we as professionals need to do and how we can deliver. I think on the positive side, what we have seen is an extraordinarily large and growing movement of people around the world who are challenging and holding government to account, and of course will be holding business to account. And I think this needs to continue and indeed will start to help catalyse more and more action. But I also think that the role of global companies in this whole agenda is going to be critical. Global companies, by their very nature, are able to transcend national boundaries. They're able to invest more widely and often go beyond regulatory requirements. So I'm looking very much towards those global companies to see that innovation and investment that's so desperately needed. But let me get back to our profession and perhaps reflect a little bit on where we are as a group of professionals. We all know that we are now in the centre of what seems like an explosion in interest in and commitment to corporate responsibility and sustainability. We're all engaged now in everything from net zero strategies, TCFD reporting, self-ID campaigns, and a whole range of ESG requests from investors. And I think it's clear to me that we are now well and truly key to business strategy and debate. Business no doubt has very difficult decisions to make. As I've said before, it needs to innovate and it needs to deliver new long-term strategies, and the emphasis very much being on delivering, not just designing them. As CR professionals, we absolutely need to make sure that our voice is heard in those discussions and that our expertise is utilised, and added to that, that we are in a position to advise and to challenge. In short, we now have our time and we now need to stand up and be counted. Historically, CRS professionals have always brought different stakeholders together and engaged supporters to deliver. But I think it's fair to say that the table is getting more and more crowded, and we're seeing more and more so-called experts at that table. So today, what we want to do is focus on how we as CRS professionals can rise to the challenge, and how we can make the most of our time in the spotlight, and how we can make sure that our voices are heard and our expertise is utilised. Specifically, how can we maintain a balance between qualitative and quantitative impacts, and between the E, the S and the G? How can we ensure that our expertise is both up to date and used? And how can we ensure that we're heard at that table? And perhaps interestingly too, how we can join forces across our organisations to deliver. CRS professionals have always been incredibly well networked and also incredibly generous in terms of sharing best practice. And we need to be doing more and more of that. I think today's event provides us an opportunity through network to share ideas and to explain best practice in our own particular sector or our own field. In short, today we're going to talk about how we can own the table, and perhaps more importantly, or as importantly, how whilst we're owning the table, we can maintain our own well-being while we're doing that. So in a minute, you'll be hearing Nadia and her colleagues at the Royal London on that very subject, how do we own the table? Then we have a number of topic sessions on a whole range of issues, including net zero and ESG, which are being led by our members, for our members. And then there'll be an opportunity for networking through some networking breaks. We'll then have some insight from recent research on key behaviours for sustainability professionals. And there'll be a closing plenary from Jennie, Galbraith, who is the Vice Chair of the ICRS, and myself, where we'll kind of do a kind of review of the day and perhaps think more about what the future of the profession and the Institute looks like. So that's really all I wanted to say, except for some housekeeping. And I think the first thing I need to say is that all of our sessions are being recorded in line with our policy, and these sessions will be made available to members on the ICRS website with the purpose of sharing more widely what we're talking about today. There is one session which is on social mobility, which won't be recorded and will fall under Chatham House rules. The events obviously being hosted on Hopin, and there will be a number of parallel sessions throughout the day on Hopin. These events will be highlighted in the reception area, which you should be able to see. And you can see there what's happening and where to join. But if you ever get lost, and I have to admit, yesterday when we were practicing, I got lost, you can return to the reception area and you can use the button on the left-hand side of the navigation panel. You can also use the chat function on the right-hand side to ask questions, or indeed, if you're having issues, use that chat function. And the ICRS Secretariat team are around to provide support too. Probably the best route is to send them an email on the email icrs.info. For the sessions on particular subjects, we'd like to invite you to share your audio and video during the Q&A sessions, or if you'd like to, particularly if you'd like to pose a question directly, or of course you can use the chat function. So I'm hoping that's covered everything. I'm really looking forward to hearing the discussion and the debate, and to make this a really great exchange. And with that, I'll hand over to Jennie, who is going to introduce the team at Royal London. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita, and hello to everyone who's joined this afternoon. Thanks for taking the time out. I am absolutely convinced that the whole day will be a fantastic session, and at least of all, this first session that we're running now will give us some really great insights. So this first session is on owning the table. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means, but it's very much going to be focused on not only, how do we deliver CRS in our own organisations, but how do we bring on board those non-CRS people and what's their role to make sure we do that properly, and we're not just speaking to an echo chamber. We've got some of those aforementioned non-CRS people with us. So if I can invite the rest of the panel to join us and say a quick hello. Nadia, over to you first.
Hello there, everybody. It is fantastic to be here. I'm Nadia Yafai. I'm Head of Mutuality and Impact at Royal London Group. A quick intro about us. We are the UK's largest financial services mutual across pensions, investments and asset management. And we're a customer-owned company. That means we're not owned by shareholders. Fantastic. We're super excited to share a bit about our learnings with you. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and then pass on to my colleagues. So I set up the program here at Royal London from the beginning, growing it to be truly embedded across the business. I have a number of strands to my role. So I oversee our community program, which drives change on financial resilience. I'm the business lead on Purpose Agenda alongside our strategy team who drive that on behalf of the CEO. And I also sit in brand and comms and help activate our social impact comms. I also oversee the mutuality agenda, which is linked to purpose to articulate our mutuality as a differentiator. I've held a number of roles across financial services and law, and I'm a board director at the ICRS. And in that capacity, I'm absolutely committed to supporting the membership to own the table. Over to you, Amy.
I think, have we lost Amy? She's perhaps frozen. Oh no, here we go.
See me?
We can see you and we can hear you now.
Perfect. And so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amy Higgs and I'm Head of Strategy at Royal London. So my team and I are responsible for working with the CEO and the exec team to develop, review and articulate our strategy. And then we work with the broader business to oversee delivery of our strategy. Prior to joining Royal London, I qualified as a chartered accountant at Standard Life and held a variety of roles, mainly in business strategy and transformation. But I've been in the strategy team at Royal London for coming up to 2 years now. And over that time period, we've actually launched a new refreshed purpose and strategy. Both of these are underpinned by our desire to protect the standard of living for our customers now and in the future. What this really means is we want to deliver more than just financial return. We want to deliver positive long-term customer outcomes as we help our customers build financial resilience, but we also want to have a really positive impact on society and the environment in which we and our customers live in. And so I'll talk more about how we approach the development of our new purpose in particular later on. But I'm really delighted to be here and be part of today's conversation to share how we worked with SMEs like Nadia to do this really effectively. So delighted to be here.
Thank you.
Sorry, Nadia, over to you now.
Hello, everyone.
Nadia.
Good afternoon. I'm Nadia Robinson, Senior Brand and Sponsorship. Can you hear me, Jennie? Is that okay?
I can just about hear you. We can't see you anymore, but hearing you is more important. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'll carry on. I can see myself. Sorry, I'm Nadia Robinson, Senior Brand Manager at Royal London. I've been here for a whopping 8 years now, and I manage the brand and sponsorship program for the group. And that means setting the strategy and managing the team to plan and execute the brand comms across all of our channels. And my career has mainly been in financial services marketing, starting off as a graduate within banking and then moving into marketing roles, being mainly responsible for strategy. And thanks, I'm excited and special brand.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So you can see today we have got a breadth of experience and a wide range of views. But before we dive into the session, let me set the scene for you, building a little bit on what Anita's already told you we're going to be covering. We are undoubtedly having our moment as CRS professionals. I regularly joke at work, I long for the days where we flew under the radar and we got to do what we liked. Those days are long gone, but I think it's all for the better. Some people would say, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. And I think that's absolutely definitely what's happened to our profession, you know, and it's a wonderful time to be part of it, to be really at the peak of this tipping point. you can't deny everything that's happened over the last 18 months, 2 years, whether that's to do with the environmental sphere on TCFZ, net zero targets, the social sphere about Black Lives Matter, COVID, Me Too movement, and also the discussions that are happening around, is CRS, is that tradition? Is it corporate responsibility, or is this about who we are as a business? What's our role as a multinational organisation? So we are absolutely front and centre of the business now, which is interesting because I have been to many of these conferences over the years where we've talked about, how do we get a seat at the table? How do we engage the board? How do we engage middle management? Oh, spoiler alert, guys, we've done that. We're here. The world's shifted. So like I say, we are absolutely front and centre. We're well prepared for this as professionals. We have always had to use our skills to engage the non-believers, to bring people on board, to harness opinion, change opinion where we have to. That's a skill set we've all got already, but that table is getting very, very crowded. So how do we manage that situation? How do we own it? How do we, shift and capture those opposing views, particularly when it's people who are more senior than us, board directors, and particularly at a time, as Anita's already alluded to, when everybody has very quickly become an expert in corporate responsibility and sustainability. We need to think, and we'll do this in this session, we're going to talk about how we balance the different demands on the business. Particularly we're seeing demands for more quantitative data, hard targets from the investment community. How do we balance out that with the more qualitative needs, the qualitative impacts of ESG and the needs of our other stakeholder groups? And how do we join forces to make this happen? How do we make the most of our moment? This is it. I don't believe it will be a short moment, but it is absolutely our moment. So as you've seen, all of our panelists today are from Royal London. Now, Royal London, the largest mutual financial services organisation in the UK. And as a result of their mutual status, I think they're one of the few organisations that can truly say they focused on customers and members from the very beginning. But they've been on a very interesting journey. We're going to hear a lot more about this. We're going to hear about how the transition from that traditional corporate responsibility through to having purpose at the very core of the strategy, and how they've engaged business-wide to bring the CR people together with the non-CR people to really make sure that is front and centre. Now, whilst all our panellists are from Royal London, I think their situation mirrors what many of us are experiencing across industry in other organisations. I know we will get some really useful insights for what this means for us as professionals. So I will let the panel bring this to life. Tell us about your journey of owning the table and what some of the challenges and the opportunities are. Nadia, over to you.
Thank you, Jennie, and thank you for that fantastic setup. Hi, everyone. So absolutely brilliant to see everyone here today, and I am super excited for this session. I'm really hoping it's going to be valuable, insightful, and inspiring to everyone on this call, and that everyone will have something they can take away from it. But I thought I'd start with what owning the table means. So it's a concept I coined, and it's going beyond having a seat at the table and having conversations with the key people. And it's more about how we embed the responsible business agenda at the heart of business, how we work cross-business to bring that knowledge, that passion, that outsider-in approach that is absolutely unique and a differentiator for CSR professionals, and how do we get societal and environmental agendas at the heart of business strategy, and how do we keep them there? So we all know that the CSR profession has changed substantially. Owning it is a recognition of that, a recognition of the journey we've been on from community to strategy and how our roles are evolving to meet that demand. I believe that's what we've done at Royal London to date, and we're really keen to share that journey and the learnings with you and be honest and transparent about some of the opportunities that we've seen along the way to work closely together and kind of really drive societal and environmental change. I thought I'd share a little bit about my role, though, first, and how it's changed a little bit over the years. And hopefully some of what I share will resonate with others. So I joined 6 years ago and I was brought in to set up the community program. For the first year, that was entirely my focus, doing a roadshow around our offices, inducting champions, choosing local charity partners, building a huge level of engagement in the program across the business. At the end of that first year, the CEO at the time asked me to work with him on our wider social impact agenda, its focus, its themes, and its aims. And I'd say the action that I took at that point was what has set up my role for success, which is that I immediately brought strategy in to work with me on that, recognizing that that would enable us to embed any approach from the outset, and it would support me with aligning and understanding the business's growing ambitions. And it's been the start of a really long and strong, and not always easy, but incredibly fruitful relationship with the strategy and brand team, and one that has made me personally grow from a community professional to a commercial and brand savvy leader. So what did I do next? Well, I then worked with the head of strategy and the other team members to develop the social impact program. We took it to board for approval and we rolled it out together with the CEO across the business through town halls and our AGM. It was a huge program of work, almost a year in total. And off the back of that, I created the first social responsibility report, which has now moved into a much more integrated report. Once we rolled it out, however, ownership for that agenda sat with me. So I then spent a period of time growing the social impact agenda and my own team with 10 social impact commitments spanning everything from proposition to responsible investment in people and overseeing the development of strategic programs to deliver against our purpose. And that includes a powerful partnership with a leading UK poverty charity, Turn to Us, and our Changemakers program, which drives innovation on social challenges with social enterprises. Now, these partnerships have been dialed up in our brand and comms, and I've worked really hard to develop the right partnerships over time. It's taken quite a lot of learning to understand what will resonate for them to use externally and really kind of demonstrates the purpose-led agenda we have. I think that's partly because they're bold, they're exciting, and I take full responsibility for this, they're really meaningful. So that balance of engagement, of impact, and of driving great social impact programs. Now, that work was the building block for bringing the right stakeholders together across commercial, across brands, people, responsible investment and strategy. And it helped us all build a deeper understanding of the responsible business agenda across the business. And for me, it was about how I learned with strategy to navigate a group business. Everything from inducting our boards in social impact to having the right conversations with commercial and proposition teams and with strategy to understand what we were trying to do and the role social impact could play in that. But at the same time, as we all know, the wider landscape has changed and the agendas that have sat in CRS, they've moved into the C-suite. So when our new CEO joined 2 years ago, this brought on a deeper focus in the business on purpose, which Amy's going to talk more about. But I then pivoted my role so that my team drives the social impact programs, and my role is expanding to work alongside strategy as the business lead on purpose. So over the last few years, I've worked with strategy on identifying the purpose, the key purpose impact areas, and the impacts we want to drive, and most recently with Amy's team on the metrics and customer and societal outcomes we want to deliver. Now, this latter part of the journey has meant leaning into my strategic and influencing and networking skills, aligning to a lot of different remits across the business, including sustainability, climate and responsible investment. And on my part, having to take responsibility for being creative and being bold in reviewing the social impact program constantly to ensure it remains relevant, big, impactful, worthy of the brand, and directly enables us to demonstrate our purpose. So where I've landed after 6 years is quite a wide-ranging role, but my focus is very much on ensuring our social impact program speaks to purpose and to brand and really dials up our purpose and strategy, enables us to own the social agenda, the S in ESG, and identifies new opportunities for us to engage. We're going to discuss a little bit more about the opportunities and challenges faced through this for all of us, but I'm going to hand over to Amy now to share how the purpose agenda has become a key strategic driver for the business and the role she sees the CSR industry playing to support strategy teams. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nadia. So our strategic direction is essentially a journey. It's about how we'll deliver our purpose with the resources we have available and in an ever-changing landscape. Our changing landscape is bigger than just our operating environment and sort of the balance of market forces. It's also about the role that we play in our customers' lives and in society. Now, over the last few years, as we've already heard, there's been a significant change in this with a greater emphasis evolving both internally and externally on the societal impacts that we have and should have, and for us at Royal London, how our mutuality particularly should underpin that. Now, most recently, this emphasis has understandably shifted towards the role that we play in tackling the climate emergency. Now, as I'm sure everyone on this call is well aware, there's huge amounts of research and insight that really back up the importance of this to customers, and increasingly it's a key factor that they look at when they choose which businesses to go to for certain products and services. For that reason, our response to these issues has to be central to our strategy. But one of the sort of dark arts of strategy development is how we balance the competing voice and demands from different stakeholders when we set out our strategy. As Nadia referenced, the strategy team at Royal London have worked really closely with her over the last few years, and we've seen how the role of CR in the organisation and strategy development has evolved. We recognise the vital importance of reflecting CR perspective in our strategic direction, but the challenge is ensuring that we can do this with the right balance with the commercial success of the business. So we're focused on ensuring our business is commercially successful and therefore it has longevity, but not to the detriment of our impact on society and the environment that we live in. Now, in my intro, and as Nadia mentioned, I wanted to talk a bit more about the refreshed purpose that we launched in 2020 and how we did that. So Barry, our CEO, joined the organisation back in 2020, potentially 2019, and he recognised the importance of improving our articulation of Royal London's purpose and really getting to the heart of what we stand for. Defining an organisation's purpose is quite a big challenge and a big undertaking, but we recognise really quickly that you can't develop a purpose. What you do is articulate one that reflects what you stand for and what you actually do as a business. And who better to tell you that than colleagues? So at Royal London, we're really lucky to have really passionate and engaged colleagues, and they really believe in what we do and what we stand for. So with Nadia's support, and that was absolutely fundamental to this process, we ran a series of really collaborative purpose cafes, as we called them. We ran surveys and senior leader sessions so that we could explore what our values are as an organisation and how they link to what we do. We then use this input to develop and iterate and test various different purpose statements to find a way that we could articulate this that really resonated with our people. Again, Nadia played a central role throughout this work. She guided us on what it really meant to be purpose-driven and, most importantly, why it mattered. So the final purpose statement that we landed on is protecting today, investing in tomorrow, together we're mutually responsible. For us, our purpose relates to how we help customers individually to protect their today and invest in their tomorrow so they can build financial resilience over their lifetimes. But it also supports our commitment to wider societal and climate agendas. We want to protect and invest in the world that we live in. The mutually responsible element of the purpose statement is also really important because it illustrates that we as a business, Royal London, have a key role to play in this, but it is mutually responsible with our customers and other key stakeholders like policymakers and the government, in fact. So our purpose statement landed really well with the people and has been very well embedded in the business. But at the start of 2021, we did feel there was a need to be a bit clearer on our specific focus areas as a purpose-driven business. What does it really mean for our customers, and what does it really mean in terms of our approach for sustainability? So once again, we chose to do this in a collaborative way, working incredibly closely with Nadia, who led this with a member of my strategy team. We brought together members from the brand team, climate leads, responsible investment leads, product customer leads, and even members of our sales teams to input into this. Now, bringing people together across the business is a really significant investment in time, but it's definitely worth it from the experience that we've had. It helps people come on the journey with you. It drives real alignment, and actually on an end-to-end basis, I think it probably accelerates the process that we went through. So through this, we developed what we've called our purpose framework, which effectively articulates what our purpose means in reality, with two key impact areas for us as a business. As I've kind of already alluded to, first of all, it is helping build financial resilience. So that's all about the long-term outcomes we want to deliver for our customers. But secondly, it's about moving fairly to a sustainable world. So that's our ambition as a responsible investor and the role we want to play in climate change. Again, I can't emphasise enough that Nadia was really at the heart of developing this along with the strategy team. And having this approach meant that we brought together the social impact commitments we've made, our focus on our customers, our commitment to sustainability, all under one cohesive framework with really clear messaging sitting behind it. Now, whilst Nadia brought the social impact lens to this work, ultimately I think it was really successful because she had a really pragmatic approach to ensuring that we did strike the right balance with the commercial requirements that we have as a business as well, to ensure that actually we're a sustainable business and will be here for our customers now and future generations of customers. As she's actually already referenced, having a great network across the business was also really beneficial. So that helped us get buy-in throughout the process with key stakeholders right across Royal London. The ultimate outcome of taking this collaborative approach and working really closely with Nadia as an SME is that the purpose framework has actually become a really key addition to our strategy articulation this year. In fact, I would argue that it's the main thing that we turn to that sets out the focus of our business and really is our North Star. Now, as well as being important to setting strategic direction and bringing our people on a really clear journey with us, there are also commercial drivers to having this clarity and having purpose at the centre of what we do. As one example, our asset manager, Arlan, has been a leading sustainable investor for many years, but we haven't always been as vocal and shouted about this as much as others in our industry. So we've taken the purpose framework and used that to ensure that we have a really purpose-driven brand positioning so that we tell our story and what we stand for in an authentic and compelling way, externally as well as internally to our people. This leads on well to what you'll hear from Nadia Robinson shortly on our purpose-driven brand. So hopefully that demonstrates sort of the extent to which CR really is at the heart of what we do as a business and how it's really the way that we've worked together that I think has driven this and got real buy-in and commitment from everyone right across the business. And Nadia Robinson, I'll hand over to you now.
Nadia.
Linkage between brand impact and sporting with very clear objectives, and that was to move Royal London from being a little known brand in the eyes of the consumer to a well-known household name. And we set ourselves the task of measuring prompted brand awareness on a regular basis, so a percentage of the UK population who are aware of our brand. And to move the dial, there was a substantial change programme that was approved by the board, and they invested heavily. And that programme has been really successful. But as the strategic direction of the business started to change, so did the role of brand. And we achieved the awareness that out, which was just as important, started a new culture. And it was people were proud to work for the organisation. And we started to tell a story that hadn't been told before, which meant bringing people together and knitting our history, but also our present. And we got the sense that people collectively were feeling part of this organisation in a way that they hadn't felt before. And in turn, they really got an understanding and a sense of what we stood for as an organisation. So the development of the purpose and strategy set the business off again in a different direction. And it wasn't just about the comms. It was about setting the direction for the whole organisation and building more an emotional connection around our reason for being. And again, building that culture was a task that was wide. And it was also about moving with the times, to be quite frank, as Amy mentioned, the commercial drivers and the demands of consumers have all been at the forefront of the development of the brand. It's more pressing now and more urgent. And we talked about the responsible investment theme and the climate change agendas. These are two of our current urgencies. Our most recent brand campaign is sort of customer story and that link between what we're calling pension and health. So there's no point saving for a future that could be inhospitable because of the damage to the environment that we've done to the planet. And the purpose being in place has given us a platform to do this. It's a really bold campaign. And again, the purpose has enabled us to be bold. You know, we've got a right to talk about this. And the early results are really promising, so it's paying off. You know, commercially, we want to be able to support our pensions business at a brand level, and the campaign has driven this. And the results are an uplift in the number of pension quotes and inquiries that we've received. So this is really positive, and it's testament to what can be achieved if you pull together your narrative and go to market with a really compelling story. We've always struggled to articulate the benefits of mutuality, and we laugh internally about still not quite being able to, but campaigns like this really make it that this is mutuality. And if I can just move a bit about how the social impact agenda is critical to brands, and it's the fact that together with purpose, you know, they're real tangibles for business, you know, real human stories, and it's what people are really interested in. And Jennie mentioned this in the intro, and I use the recent example of the discourse about race and equality over the last couple of years and the prominence of BA example. And, you know, it's often a cultural shift, and these human stories that get people's attention. So when George Floyd was killed and brands showed solidarity by posting black squares on social media, that was great in that it showed awareness and allyship. But people demanded more. They wanted to know, where should we stand on diversity, what are numbers, and what's being done to change. It's not enough to just be talking about intention. There needs the action. And we're asking ourselves, where next with our responsible investment campaign? What action are we taking? And a brand needs to demonstrate its value and reason for being. And this is how we're beginning to see and talk about us at every time. And a bit about that, also for sharing what we're doing on a day-to-day, and probably a little bit of advice too. We've thought about what real change means. An example for us is our social impact budget set within one of our flagship sponsorships. So this year we partnered with the ACE programme, which is a charity set up to get young black people into playing cricket. And our support has meant the programme has launched its 13th model. Purpose changed our approach and mindset to campaigns and activities, and we're about to start looking at our longer term sponsorship strategy and what that looks like from an overall approach and to partnerships themselves. And that is going to be fundamental to this process. Will be underpinned, decisions that we will underpin by purpose and opportunities that it brings to drive change and to make a difference. So from our perspective, we'll be asking some of the same questions that you might ask when looking at a social impact programme, and that's from a brand and marketing perspective. And another live example is, COP26 has just ended, and now our attention is turning to how do we leverage our ambition to be action-oriented, and how do we continue to collaborate as a team? And I'm asking us as a collective to look at our opportunities and to prioritise. So for example, Nadia is looking at the transition piece and how understanding underpin those research response that we sponsor. We go further and develop a programme to bring them. And on the other hand, our responsible investments teams will look at where we can take meaningful actions, again, not just list those intentions. And my role is to bring all that together and look for the internal and the external stories and to share those and look at those key messages and what will resonate with our different audiences. And this is just an example of how we galvanise ourselves around purpose and continue our drumbeat activity around the theme of responsible investment. And I guess a bit of advice to see our professionals is, as you know, don't forget about measurement, and also to try and look at what you want to achieve and how that stacks up against brand objectives and making sure that those two are aligned. It's for you to demonstrate your, because what Nadia has done really, able to tell those great and enable us to, have a platform to be authentic. So we ask again for you and about to demonstrate value, and you might want to do colleagues, asking customers what's important to them, use research, test out ideas, and just think more broadly about wider activity. And don't see yourself as separate. You are part of brands, and that is fundamentally how the outside world will view it. So there is definitely merit in joining forces, and we've seen that really work at Royal London. And it sounds really cliche, but it really does need a one team mentality. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Great experience there. Apologies for the couple of technical issues we had. And everyone, audience, everyone, as you know, is super prepared for these sessions, but I'm going to shake things up a little bit and take things off the menu of the pre-prepared questions, because I think we've got some super experts here who have lived and breathed it and done this. So I'm going to ask them to tear the scripts up and try and be as honest as you can do. So Nadia, what would you have done differently?
Wow, a great question. And that was not part of the script, but that's all good. What would I have done differently? Funny enough, actually, I was thinking yesterday when I was prepping for this, what would I have done differently, or what would kind of my key nuggets be? I think probably the thing I did right was bringing strategy in from the beginning, right? That was absolutely the right thing to do. I think what I would have done differently is probably get to the point of really having and owning the areas that I bring to the table much quicker, because I think I was involved in so much and I probably thought I had to know it all do it all and be visible at it all. And actually, my big learning working over Purpose for 2 years is actually you don't have to be at the table to own the table.
Yeah. And that's really valuable because, you know, we're all saying this is our moment in the spotlight. We want our glory. And I think what you're saying is actually don't try and do that. You know, you'll get to the end result quicker if you bring other people in quicker and give them some ownership. Amy, when you were talking, I was really intrigued what you were saying. Was it Barry, the new CEO? Did he really get it straight away? Or was the employee consultation key to that? Or how did that really work? You're in a safe space.
I would say actually, so my boss, Ewan Smith, he's described it as Barry, the CEO, having a penny drop moment. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say that he immediately strode in and completely got it. But I think through the process of understanding how important it was to our colleagues and that collaborative approach we took, I guess, you know, the external environment, the increasing focus on this needing to be a fundamental part of our strategy. And also probably as we started to articulate it in a way that really made sense and illustrated both, you know, the importance to our customers and members and the commercial value that it can deliver, you know, he very quickly came on board. But there was a kind of, I think there was a moment in a meeting where he suddenly thought, wow, I really, really get this. You know, it's something we want to do. It's something that people want from us. And actually it's key to ensuring that we can be commercially successful and be here in the long term to help customers now and in the future, and you know, to have a real positive impact on society and the environment. So yeah, there was a bit of a journey to get there, but I think it was clear how passionate, you know, Nadia, the team, and the whole business were about it, which definitely.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think passionate and authentic goes a long way in bringing the naysayers along with us. Although I think as CRS professionals, we all need to have a lot of tools, a lot of ammunition in our armory, and it differs for the different people you're speaking to. I know.
Just on that one other point, I would highlight is we have an analytics and insight function, and I guess, you know, we are increasingly trying to be insight driven and data driven, as many businesses are, and you know, there was so much coming from that team that illustrated the importance of embedding this in everything we do, which was definitely kind of useful ammunition for us to throw it at the CEO. Sorry, I interrupted that.
Thank you, no problem. And so I, before my time in tobacco, and I'm currently working for British American Tobacco. Before that, I worked for the co-op, so a similar model. And I know all too well, actually, that, you know, between the two differences, the ability to engage and have that at the core was very different in a cooperative or a mutual organisation. Has anyone got any insights for people who are, you know, either working in an organisation that isn't necessarily as forward thinking, or perhaps doesn't necessarily have that consumer angle that can be easy to demonstrate? You know, what lessons have you got that can share with other people who perhaps aren't in the fortunate working for a mutual in the D&A position?
Huge so business actually are ambassadors around these and people most way that we understand is that we take just to across the industry, the growing force and really identifying this area will really help drive not doing something to actually tell you that. So you can stop with that. There's almost regardless of the human result. Yes, it's human it's listening to people and understanding what matters and the and the company absolutely and wider society. So it's probably one takeaway for me, but I might come other than that.
Brilliant, thank you. And another question I've got, again, thinking about what will really help our audience, to Amy and Nadia who aren't CRS people, what do you need from us? You know, what do you need to make this happen? Is it, you know, the hard data? Is it, you know, the upskilling? Is it the passion, enthusiasm? What do you need from us as a community?
give my view first, and actually it's probably all of the things that you've just articulated there, Jenny. So I think passion and enthusiasm are massively important. You know, energy just does help change the tone of the conversation and really does bring people on board, especially if you're trying to get, you know, all your colleagues and a large group of people behind a clear purpose to take forward. For me personally, and you know, I am an accountant, I do work in strategy, I do like to have kind of a commercial view of things. So, you know, stats and insight, as I said, do make a big difference. It's impossible to argue with embedding, you know, CR in our strategy if you've got really hard facts that's what people want from us, and actually that will also, you know, help us drive positive returns for our customers, for our members. And as I, you know, have said frequently, ensure that we can be here for the long term. And the other thing I would say, which Nadia has emphasised, is early engagement and, you know, building those relationships. So actually, it's something that we think of at the start of strategic initiatives or at the start of comms, and it does just become part of the way, you know, the way we think, the way we operate. So yeah, those are some of the things that I would call out.
Yeah. Nadia, anything from your side?
And just that as well, I think the thing. Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think, you know, as I mentioned earlier as well, it's that, you know, it's those cultural moments and those cultural pieces that CSRs are really close to, and I think that's valuable. And you know, from a marketing and a brand perspective, you know, those are the real human stories and the elements that people are really interested in. So I think, you know, CSR professionals are really close to that. So don't sort of underestimate and think that, you know, from a brand or a strategic point of view, you know, these programs and these sort of points interesting, I think are the brands. And I think, you know, just be brave as well. Be brave, have those conversations and have those discussions. And I guess, you know, the theme of owning the table, there's, you know, that calls on everyone to just to be brave and to speak up. So that would be my advice.
That's brilliant, thank you. I think we've got some questions here about challenging complexity. I think we've covered those off on Nadia, unless there's any other big challenges you haven't told us about. I think we've got tech issues. No problem. Listen, guys, I think we have had an absolutely fantastic discussion. Thank you so much to my panelists. I know this has taken a lot of preparation, and just taking the time out of our crazy, still COVID-led diaries, if it's anything like mine, is hugely appreciative. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for your honesty when I threw the script